Exhibition art for furniture and design pieces is often ignored, but the beauty remains uncanny. We took a stroll down a street in Parkhurst, Johannesburg, where we spoke to various dealers in the antique industry ahead of SAADA, the SAADA Expo taking place a little bit later on this month.
Join us as we journey through the ages of the artistic side of one of the items most of us probably have in our home. Antique. An item in the form of either jewelry, furniture, ceramics or artistic pieces that have been preserved through the ages and hold a great deal of value. The antique industry in South Africa is a relatively young one, with these collectibles not being fully appreciated as works of art, rather than an old piece of jewelry or furniture. SAADA is the oldest antique association in South Africa, and we got hold of the CEO, who will take us through the times of a simple chair on an Insta walk as we visit various dealers on 8th Street in Parkhurst.
SAADA is an association that was started about 53 years ago, and it's a collection of the top antique dealers in South Africa, and it's now grown to include dealers in art and also 20th century design. And we've developed this tour as being a sort of a time travel tour through some of the shops in Johannesburg, where we will look at different pieces that each dealer has, and how that has evolved, how the design of that piece has evolved in time.
So Lynn, please tell us about the chair that we have here and what year it comes from.
This is a wainscot chair. It's English. It's circa 1670 to 1690. It falls under the oak collecting category, which is a whole collecting in its own self. What's important about this chair is it was always a symbol of a status symbol. It was used in a castle or home. It would have, because of its size, it would have been more for a lady rather than the man, and then she would have been quite special because often only the men had these important chairs. In today's decorating and homes that we have, it is absolutely wonderful because of its architectural proportions and colour and individuality, if you want to call it that. It looks wonderful in a modern setting.
So we're in a beautiful chair we have here. I believe it is South African. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, this chair takes us to around 1790, 1800 to Cape Town, South Africa. So it would have been made for a wealthy patrician living in Cape Town. Lady Anne Barnard had arrived in Cape Town towards the end of the 18th century in 1797, and she was a style monger. She was South Africa's very own Duchess of Devonshire. So she really created quite a stir through lavish parties at the castle, and yes, she created this taste, or brought the taste for a finer, lighter English furniture to South Africa at the time. What makes this chair very important is the fact that it also has its original colour, as did Lynn's chair, so that adds to its value and collectability. Looking stylistically at the chair, it's made in the new classical taste. So we see symmetry, straight lines. This is called fluting, and the fluting sort of runs throughout the chair, which is quite interesting in this example.
Ashley, tell us a little bit about the chair that we have here. What year was it from?
It's about circa 1840, which is quite an early chair. It's mahogany, English. It's probably one of the most unusual chairs that I've dealt in for a long time because of the way that it's configured. It goes back, it reclines at the back, so it can go right down flat. It can go straight up like that for someone to sit upright. It has a footrest that pulls out and then lifts from the front to different heights and positions, which probably would have been for somebody who had gout in those days, which was very much the common thing for a man. So for the period, it's a very unusual chair with all the different sort of options, and very much thought of what it was used for. So the man who would have had it made bespokely would have had it made bespokely for their needs.
Yeah, these are two deco chairs, dining room chairs in bird's eye maple, very typical of the time, with this form and the veneered features, and they picked up the eyes in the veneer and matched the pattern. Very straight lines, and Art Deco used a lot of bright yellow furniture. It was very, very in vogue to have this bright yellow dining room suite.
So what we are looking at here is more 20th century, in fact not only 20th century, but after the Second World War, so post-war, 1945 to 1960s. And what is so important about this era is how there were new technologies and new materials that were never available previously during the 19th century and the 18th century. These materials that are being used in the 20th century weren't even available. When we think of Charles and Ray Eames, we have to talk about plywood, because their most famous chair is one of these two chairs here, which you can see has got a wooden plywood shell, and this is again aluminium struts. So plywood was not a material that was really available pre the Second World War. And directly after the war, in 1946, he designed what has become very famous, his 670 Lounger, which is a plywood shell with aluminium and black leather, a beautiful chair.
The SAADA Expo will take place from the 28th to the 30th of October 2016 at the Wanderers Club in Johannesburg.